what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I've got a brand new video for you! Welcome to part 12 of What If Deku Had Full Counter. Please sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. With that out of the way, let's get this story going, shall we? Nana's Bistro was an Italian restaurant in Esuha City. Mazza was one of its few regulars, but he wasn't there for the capricci chicken. The Renzo family was an Italian mob who were practically unheard of in Japan before quirks became more commonplace in society. They had maintained their foothold for several decades, partially in thanks to Mazza's efforts back in the States and his influence. Except for a young thug guarding the hallway to the back office, the restaurant was deserted. Mazza ignored the young man's attempts to stop him. 2 additional men emerged from their boss's office upon hearing the disturbance. Mazza was flanked by the 3 men, giving the impression there was going to be a brawl. "Lay a hand on a dead man, and I'll shred you so badly your own mamas won't recognize you!" Their boss's anger caused the gangsters to back away. Mazza was relieved to see the young godfather, Raphael, who embraced his friend, patting him on the back before walking Mazza into his office. About 8 years ago, Raphael Talon Renzo took over the family company. He wasn't old, but he was a great capo. Like most of the members of his family, he earned his alias from his quirk. His nails were pointed and could grow into long black talons. His enemies would consider Raphael to be a deadly opponent, but Mazza had nothing to fear. "It's so good to see you again, Testimone. Have you been eating well? You're practically skin on the bone." "I'm doing fine, Giovanni Padrino. I've just been busy. What do I owe you for what I've requested?" "Mazza, I don't ask for anything from you. You played the piano and served as the best man at my wedding, and after everything you've done for my family, you're practically one of us." "Raphael, you're aware that's not how I operate. The underground will go up in flames if I pick favorites." "That burden you bear on your records shouldn't prevent you from coming by and enjoying a hot meal and good company." From a safe, Raphael removed a briefcase. The case was unassuming, but its contents were worth more than its weight in gold to Mazza. Raphael embraced Mazza once more after handing him the case. "My master friend, you worked too hard in a perilous profession to be without a quirk. If you're ever in trouble, the Renzos will be there for you." "Grazie mille, Renzo." Thrown furniture and Italian yelling could be heard in the restaurant area. The godfather and informant entered to see what was going on. One of Raphael's men had just run in. He said he was being followed by hawks, but was able to give him the slip. While the godfather was chewing out his underling for his carelessness, Mazza noticed something in the tired man's coat. The masked informant pulled a red feather from his pocket. The front window shattered as red feathers rushed in. In came hawks, flying through the broken window and landing on a nearby table. The number 3 heroes scanned the crowd before his eyes landed on Raphael and Mazza. "Do you have a reservation, Signore Hawks?" "Nah, I'm just here on business. You're under arrest." Within seconds, a fight began. Raphael unleashed his talons as he and his quirked family members kept Hawk's attention, while Mazza led the quirkless gangsters out the back door. Mazza was the last to leave, walking calmly a few streets down to not look conspicuous. But he wasn't out of the woods yet. Mazza was being followed. He went down an alley and out of his pursuer's sight. When the thug rounded the corner, the masked man threw him deeper into the hallway. The young gangster looked terrified as the bat-wielding informant towered over him. "You must be new blood. Otherwise, you would have known not to follow me." "I didn't feel safe bailing with anyone else. Signore Mazza, I've only heard good things about you. To have most mob families consider you their go-to for info, you must be the stronger quirkless in the underground." "I do my job well. That's why I get hired." Unseen forces hurled the thug into a neighboring dumpster, slamming the lid shut. Something snagged Mazza's coat. It threw him against the wall, pinning him several feet off the ground. The blow knocked the briefcase and bat from his grip. "I was originally sent to capture one mobster on charges of theft and money laundering, but when he led me to Renzo's godfather and the masked informant, well, I couldn't pass that up. Mazza remained silent, pondering. It's been fun, Matza, but our cat and mouse game is over, Hawks chuckled. It's Matza, tu carno pavon. And why should our fun stop here? Let's have a round 2. Hawks backed away just as his captive nearly kicked his head. He drew his feather sword as Mazza slipped free from his coat. The masked informant snatched up his bat and swung at the pro hero. Metal-studded wood clashed against the feathered blade. The two men dueled for several moments, with Hawks appearing to have the upper hand. Splinters flew from the bat with each swing of Hawks' weapon. Mazza had been using the same bat for roughly 20 years. He had cared for it greatly over that time, but the masked man wasn't sure how much abuse his loyal weapon could take. The crimson feather sank into the wood, striking the bat's metal core. A tense standstill was held before the winged hero flung his weapon into the alleyway, taking the bat with it, leaving Mazza unarmed. The informant ran since he had no other options. Hawks wasn't expecting the informant to flee. The masked mafioso avoided the incoming feathers the best he could. He didn't anticipate the winged hero to summon his feather sword and trip him. A smaller feather struck Mazza in the back of the head. After he fell, Hawks approached his catch. He noticed a black mask laying on the ground a couple feet away. Looks like I'll get to see the man behind the mask. Move slow, Mazza. No funny business. You owe me a new bat, Pavone. Doing as he was told, Mazza stood slowly and glanced over his shoulder. Disbelief struck Hawks like a sucker punch. He knew Mazza's face. After all, the winged blonde was a big fan of Endeavor and his former sidekick. Mazza picked up his mask before returning it to its proper place. What's wrong? Did I take the wind from your wings? For once, Hawks had no words. Not a single witty remark. Well, this was fun. You can arrest me now, Hawks. I've got a few words for a certain detective anyway. It was the strangest arrest Hawks had ever made. He let Mazza collect his things before the two departed. The dumpster thug had seen everything, and he had to tell his boss. You expect me to believe such an outlandish story? I'm telling you, boss, Mazza is Kiyo. You've had a pro working under your nose. He's probably ratting you out to the police right now. Raphael was conflicted. His family was waiting for their next orders, some wanting to give Mazza a new pair of cement shoes. The Godfather sat conflicted for a long while. Now that I've submitted my report, could you please explain what's going on, Tsukaoji? I'm surprised you haven't put her together yet, kid. With the help of Detective Tsukaoji, Hisashi explained the deal he made with the cops regarding the Mazza persona. It was a lot for the winged hero to take in. And if you squawk any of this to anyone, I'll make sure you never fly again. Tsukaoji interjected. Don't scare him, he doesn't mean that, Hawks. But this needs to stay hush-hush, you know? Yeah, I get it. I'm gonna go home and process all this. You two have fun with whatever it is you're doing. Hawks leapt out of the detective's office window. Tsukaoji shook his head, frustrated. Use the damn door next time. But it was a beautifully dynamic exit. Focus up, theater nerd. Let's see what you got. Both men were looking over the info Hisashi got from Raphael. There were files on missing kids and shady doctors. There were also some notes on the league that the Renzos were able to scrape together. The detective wished there was more, but Mazza reassured his friend. We gave them a rather small time frame. We're lucky to get as much info as we did. Yeah, you got a point there, Tsukaoji said. Hisashi took a closer look at one of the missing kids. He was sure he recognized him, possibly one of Izuku's or Katsuki's friends from way back when. The kid's quirk was familiar at least, being able to sprout leather wings from his back to fly. The files fell from Hisashi's hands, a horrible thought crossing his mind. What's wrong, Hisashi? You look pale. Non lasciare che sia così. Can we do DNA tests on the Nomu from Hosu? Now it was Tsukaoji's turn to go pale. The implications of what Hisashi discovered made sleep difficult. Despite this, he still found himself in the dream realm. The fire breather had a love-hate relationship with dreaming. It was the one place he could potentially see her again. "Wake up, Dragonfly! You can't stay in bed all day," Inko said happily. Don't wanna. So comfy." "Don't tempt me by snuggling, that's not fair." "But you're so warm, and I love you so much." "I love you too, but you have to get up. You have to see Izuku off to school." Hizashi looked at his wife's face. She was as beautiful as the day he lost her. Inko's kitsune markings glowed softly in the morning light. "Happy anniversary, Dragonfly." Hizashi shot awake, sweating bullets and tears welling in his eyes. His bed felt too big and too cold. "Happy anniversary, little fox." Hizashi dragged himself from his bedroom and into the kitchen. Izuku was making breakfast, something the young man only did if Hizashi slept in too late. "Hey, Dad, I've already got your coffee brewed and the food will be ready in a minute." There was no verbal acknowledgement from Hizashi. There was barely a nod. Izuku watched his father pour a cup of coffee before adding milk and brown sugar. Hizashi always took his coffee black. Izuku knew this. It all became clear to the young man when he saw Hizashi set the hot drink next to Inko's memorial. "Oh gosh, I completely forgot what today was. Do you want me to stay with you today, Dad?" "Don't worry, Green Bean. I can manage on my own. Besides, you've got your last of your semester finals to worry about. That's what your focus should be on." "Should I call Mr. Yagi or Uncle Enji to keep you company? I know you don't like to be alone this time of year." "I think Yagi is busy with something today. I don't want to bother him, but I'll try to call Enji a little later on." The written portion of the semester final was a breeze compared to what was planned for the practical. The students were set into teams of 2 and had to fight the teachers, who would be handicapped. This would be 1A's toughest battle yet. Kirishima and Sato were the first of the matches fighting against Cementos. Red Riot and Sugarman were given some time beforehand to plan. Thanks to their internships, the young men not only considered the strengths and weaknesses of their opponent's quirk, but also themselves. They knew their limits and had to work with them. Rushing in didn't seem like a good idea. The timer started. Sato ran towards his teacher as he downed a shot of sugar. Cementos grew stone walls in waves. Sato broke through each barrier. Kirishima was on the rooftops, positioning himself right above his teacher. He stood on the ledge, toes hanging off the edge. Red Riot steadied his breathing and jumped. "Meteor strike!" The sneak attack wasn't so sneaky. Cementos glanced at the falling student before making a concrete dome. The red head crashed into the shield just as Sato broke through the last barrier between him and his opponent. Cementos was suddenly grappled by Sugarman. With 2 hardened punches, Red Riot broke through the concrete before throwing a haymaker. His rock-hard fist connected squarely on Cementos' face. It was a swift victory after the handcuffs were slapped onto their teacher's wrist. With time to spare, Kirishima and Sato won the match. There was plenty of time before Todoroki's match. It would be helpful to form a plan with his partner. Yaoyorozu was hanging out in one of the prep rooms. She was doubting herself again. Ever since her cavalry team lost in the sports festival, she'd been thinking that maybe she wasn't as smart as she thought. The young prodigy was too caught up in her head to notice Todoroki entered. "Hey, Yaoyorozu. You doing all right?" "Huh? Oh yes, I'm okay. What's the plan?" "I have a couple things in mind, but I wanted your thoughts on how we could take Aizawa down or escape the test area." Yaoyorozu turned away from Todoroki. That one movement held 10,000 words and several conflicting emotions. The half-and-half teen sighed before sitting next to her. "Still bummed about the festival. I don't fault you for feeling the way if that's the cause. It was really unfortunate that Kaminari's electricity weakened Dark Shadow to the point where he and Tokiyami couldn't protect you from Minetta's quirk attack." Tears fell heavily as Yaoyorozu's breathing became panicked and hyperventilating. Todoroki wasn't sure how to handle this situation. "I know! It was short-sighted of me. I should have considered the compatibility of my team's quirks, and I gave the worst orders at the wrong time. Ashido should have been the writer, not me! I clearly don't think enough to be a hero. Get out of your head and pull yourself together. Shoto gently slapped his partner's face, holding Yaoyorozu's head between his hands. The young woman was now forced to look Todoroki in his eyes. A discomforting silence grew between them. I'm sorry. I've seen my uncle and my father do and say that to each other when they get stuck in their thoughts. It seemed effective, so I thought doing that would help you. Yaoyorozu started giggling. Todoroki's explanation sounded so sweet. She held her classmate's hands as she removed them from her face. The tears stopped falling. Well, it was surprisingly effective. I do have a plan. One where we defeat Aizawa. The plan worked better than anticipated. Yaoyorozu created a near-exact replica of their teacher's capture tool. Using Todoroki's hot and cold to spring the trap, Aizawa was bound in the replica scarf. Yaoyorozu hugged Todoroki, thanking him for encouraging her. As beautiful of a day as it was outside, Hisashi had the curtains drawn. Many alcoholic drinks decorated the countertops. For the past few hours, the fire breather had been practicing his drink mixing, making 2 of each. He drank one of the cocktails to dull his emptiness before laying a glass aside for his lost lover. The intoxicated man sang, mixing another drink. I will think of our song when the nights are too long. I'll dream of you, for that's where I belong. Love, can we meet again soon in the bluest of skies? Only in my dreams do we meet again. Hisashi stopped what he was doing, dropping his glassware. He heard the lullaby's melody recently, too recently for it to be last year. His drunken mind brought him back to the exact moment he heard that haunting tune a few days ago. Before we get back to the video, I want to talk about our new channel, Celestia, our channel dedicated to all things Dungeons & Dragons. Currently, we have a series breaking down the different spells in D&D, and soon we'll be starting some brand new series as well. So, if you're a fan of D&D, or have an interest in learning about it, check it out! Additionally, if there is something you've always wanted to see get made into a video, head over there and make a comment mentioning it. Midoriya and Bakugo walked into their testing grounds. They had gone over several plans for a handful of situations. However, both young men really wanted to fight All Might. If they could work together and defeat their teacher, that would be the coolest thing ever. Midoriya had sparred with the Symbol of Peace a couple of times before the entrance exam. With what the jade-eyed boy knew, he and the explosive blonde could win if they go plus ultra. All Might's first punch completely destroyed an entire street, and he was holding back. The only thing completely preventing the boys from being thrown was Midoriya countering 10% of the attack's power, which basically did nothing. I think he was holding back during training. You think? All Might rushed his students. Bakugo and Midoriya reacted quickly, shouting, "Split!" before using their quirks on each other simultaneously. Both young men shot apart from each other just as All Might struck where they once stood. Izuku was the first to rush back into battle. He jabbed and kicked at All Might with great speed, the pro hero blocking the attacks effortlessly. Bakugo aimed his hands at his opponent. The explosive blonde blasted a focused shot. The fireball rushed at All Might. Midoriya tried to get away, but a massive hand grabbed his leg. Bakugo half-caught his teammate when All Might threw him. Midoriya countered again, changing his trajectory as he and Kacchan steadied themselves. You're going to have to try a lot harder than that to defeat me, heroes! All Might announced. The usually hopeful smile gave an air of foreboding and danger. Midoriya growled as he glared at his childhood hero, his competitive temper showing as clearly as his kitsune markings. Alrighty, Mighty! Try my Foxfire for size! Green flames covered Midoriya's hands. Foxfire was once a common ability among the Midoriya family, but hadn't been seen in generations. Horosha and Yanda suspected Hisashi's dragon soul was responsible for rekindling the kitsune's flames. The young man had been training with his fire after the internships. Now he could wield it with confidence. Too bad the use of his foxfire caused his anger to spike. Bakugo would have been impressed with Midoriya's tenacity if it wasn't so damn annoying. The nerd's form was sloppy as he threw flaming haymakers and axe kicks. A red glow drew Bakugo's eyes. His gauntlets were loaded and ready. All Might easily dodged the strikes before throwing Midoriya into a building. The green-haired teen pulled himself from the rubble, fuming with rage as jade flames danced off his hands and his hair. All Might was still smiling, and that pissed Midoriya off. He was ready to rush his enemy again until he blinked, and All Might had grabbed the young man's head. "Your reckless anger will get someone killed, young man!" "Kiss my ass, old man!" A glob of spit struck All Might in the eye. It took a minute for the older man to process what had just happened. Small explosions peppered All Might's back. Bakugo rushed in, guns at the ready. "Drop the Padawan, now!" All Might flung Midoriya at Bakugo. The boys used their quirks to avoid colliding. Bakugo pulled the gauntlet pin, unleashing a massive fireball. The blonde didn't wait for the smoke to clear. He hauled Midoriya over his shoulder and ran. "Put me down, Blasty! I was about to kick that stupid grin off his face, but you just had to get in the way. Could you take a break and breathe for a second?" Damn, never thought I'd be the one to say that. Midoriya wanted to keep his anger burning, but started to focus on his breathing. Bakugo didn't know what they could do. The young men couldn't beat All Might, and escaping wouldn't be easy. "I hate to say this, but maybe we should consider running. We'll be kicking ourselves later for our cowardice, but at least we'll pass. If we both run, All Might will catch us easily. I'll distract him while you make a break for it." "This isn't what we planned. You're stealthier, and that's what he'll be expecting, Kacchan. All Might knows me and what my dad taught me. He'll be expecting you to distract him while I go for the door. We have to do this way." Although he disagreed, Bakugo went along with it. They didn't have time to argue. Midoriya sped off to face All Might again, while Bakugo went in the opposite direction. This would be a fight that Midoriya couldn't win. Bakugo ran hard, even when the exit was in sight. The only thing that stopped him was his classmates' agonizing screams. Both of Midoriya's arms were messed up, kneeling before All Might. Although he was determined, Izuku had little strength left. "You fought well, young Midoriya. Now stay down." "Go to hell!" The young man kicked for All Might's family jewels, but the pro blocked the attack before returning the favor, punting Midoriya down the street. Bakugo watched his classmates skip and skid along the pavement. Midoriya was too winded to stand. The pro hero approached his downed opponent. "Get the hell away from him, you bastard!" With the speed of a missile, Bakugo abandoned the plan and rushed into battle. He threw some explosions at All Might before standing defensively in front of Midoriya. "Are you gonna take a crack at me, young Bakugo?" The young blonde had no retort. He quickly aimed and pulled the pin of his other gauntlet. The fireball consumed All Might as Bakugo collected Midoriya and ran. If he weren't coughing up blood, All Might would have chased the boys down. Although it wasn't how either young man wanted, Bakugo and Midoriya passed their exam. The jade-eyed teen was furious that his teammate would risk everything to save him, but Izuku was still grateful. Midoriya invited Todoroki and Bakugo to his place to celebrate their successful day. Hizashi hadn't answered Izuku's calls, but the trio didn't think the fire breather would mind having company. "Dad, I'm home, and I brought Sho-chan and Kacchan." There was no answer, or any noise for that matter. A heavy stench of alcohol overwhelmed the high schoolers. They looked around to find the place a complete mess. Glasses and files were scattered about. Dozens of drinks decorated Inko's shrine. A horrified knot formed in Izuku's guts, while Bakugo snooped around and Todoroki debated on calling his father. The phone call wasn't necessary, as Enji showed up but moments later. Enji explained that he sensed a disturbance in the force when Hizashi didn't answer his calls. Bakugo called everyone into Hizashi's room. The older Midoriya's bedroom looked like a conspiracy theorist's field day. Papers and files were thrown about, while others were pinned or plastered on every flat surface. Red threads connected ideas across the room in a half-cohesive manner. "It's It's even worse than I thought. You three stay here. I'm gonna look for the fire-breathing idiot. I'm coming with you. No. Knowing your father, he'd rather not have you see him like this. I'll take Shota when I find him. Enji left before the boys could retort. The flame-bearded man checked out Hizashi's usual places. The dive bars were a bust, and the coffee shops were a no-go. There was no sign of him at the skate park or the community center. Not even a single hero at the Crimson Torch knew of their boss's whereabouts. Worry twisted inside Enji's mind as he ran out of places to look. Think, meathead. There has to be somewhere you've overlooked. If I were Hizashi, where would I go if I were drunk off my ass, mind racing with conspiracies, and mourning my what? Oh no. Oh shit! Maybe everything was fine. It's possible that Hizashi was just drunkenly crying and seeking comfort from Hirosha and Yanda. Or maybe Hizashi wandered his way somewhere new and was going to be calling his older cousin any minute now. Screw off, cops! That's not my wife. She's not buried and I can prove it. Let go of me. Where's my Inko? Where is she? Inko! A couple of squad cars were in front of the steps of the Midori Shrine. Two cops with strength-enhancing quirks were trying to restrain a frantic Hizashi. The drunken man kicked and screamed, tongues of fire lashing from his mouth. Another officer secured a mouthguard to stop Hizashi from breathing any more fire. Enji watched his cousin get thrown into a police cruiser and taken away. Hirosha was distressed. Enji, the worst thing just happened. Calm down, Lady Hirosha. What happened? The shrine maiden tried to speak, but she choked on her emotions. Yanda held Hirosha close as he began to explain. They heard a noise from the graveyard. The psychic elder investigated while his wife called the authorities. Yanda was surprised to find a disheveled Hizashi digging and defiling Inko's gravesite. The intoxicated man was babbling something about an experiment with quirks and missing people, and that Yanda's daughter was somehow involved. The police showed up shortly after. We had tried inviting Hizashi over earlier today, but he wouldn't take our calls. Enji replied, He was ignoring my calls too. But don't worry, I'll get this sorted out. Things had calmed down a bit when Enji arrived at the police station. Detective Sukauchi had finished questioning Hizashi when the larger man arrived. After a brief explanation of things and the payment of the bail, Enji was able to leave with a sobering Hizashi in tow. Why didn't you call me before things got this bad? Do you realize how worried I was? Or your son, for that matter? I know, Fanculo. You don't have to be so loud, but I'm so very certain that what I've discovered could be a breakthrough in us, better understanding the Nomu and the resources the League possesses. And if it's all true, it means Inko is still alive. Hizashi. And I could help her remember me and Izuku. I could get my best friend back. Hizashi! The fire breather flinched at his cousin's sharp tone. Genuine worry was clear on Enji's face. I know that you miss Inko-chan dearly, but your mental and emotional health has been on the decline since her death. You spoke to Fiyumi? No. I'm more observant than you think, little brother. I know it'll be hard for you, but you need to exorcise Inko-chan's ghost and let her go. Hizashi was wide-eyed and fearful. Tears began to fall down the smaller man's face as he leaned against Enji's chest. I'm so tired, Enji, and scared. Tired of feeling alone. I don't know how long I can keep going like this. Enji was never really good at handling emotions. When he tried to comfort his cousin, he realized Hizashi had fallen asleep. Enji collected Hizashi and returned him home. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, there's a little bit of housekeeping to go over. First, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the stories of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can also be found in the description below. And finally, if you like what we do here at We the Celestials, I want to extend an invitation to join our team. There's only one caveat: you must be 16 years or older to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord in the link in the description below. And that's it for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have an amazing day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim, Mustache out.